We asked for likes and you guys delivered. It's time for the mod guide of the Double Trouble. So this is the Double Trouble by Adventure Force, and like you guys know, we're the only ones that have one right now, which is super duper sweet. I love getting things just a little bit early because it gives us a head start to pick out the real winners. I think this blaster has a lot of potential, and we're going to just torque it out completely. So while we are still working on our Ultimate Strife mod guide, we definitely want to crack this open, give it a full once over. Let's just real quick bring you up to speed. So the Double Trouble is a semi-automatic machine pistol dual revolver setup with really decent FPS performance and a funky fresh sci-fi kind of feel and flavor. So a little bit bigger than a Strife, we have the overall profile of it, and just I thought this blaster was sweet when we got it in, and I really want to torque it up. Just as a quick memory refresher, and those were all worn SC&C darts. So now that we've confirmed that it'll fire just about anything we put in it, let's make it fire just about anything we put in it hard. Let's go down to the workshop. Alright guys, so step one of cracking open the Double Trouble is in fact to crack it open. Then you're going to remove that drum style turret. I see in this mechanism no real modification potential. You could grease it, but ultimately this is going to actuate exactly how it actuates, and for all things considered, it's pretty smooth. So let's crack open the shell and see what we're actually dealing with here. Alright guys, so since we're not actually planning on painting the Double Trouble, I kind of want to remove things in zones, and I also really just want to compliment Dart Zone on how they've been doing their paneling on a lot of these pieces. The fact that a lot of these are pop-out secondary color pieces, since we're not painting it, we've painted enough Dart Zone blasters before to like really let you know that this is such a cool feature. It makes your multicolored paint job so clean, the ability to snap out these parts. Now that their plastic quality is on par with Hasbro, like it's really cool that there's such an ease of painting options. So let's go ahead and remove this first. This should give us a pretty good look at our flywheels, and interestingly enough, they seem to be made of the same shell plastic. The muzzle is all its own piece, no need to take out these two screws, and then the flywheels here are, again, like they're the same plastic, but they're just not exciting, and the cage itself is super duper open. Hopefully we can do something with that overall. And then back here, as we open up the whole body, so there is kind of an error in the clamshell design here, since the on-off switch, or the barricade style rev switch, as well as the battery tray, is located entirely on the far side of the shell. It's not all on one side, which means we're going to have to snip this, and I'm sure, so dumping this over, we get a good look at what I was talking about with that two color paneling. Then we also get a look at the switch here. Pretty robust switch, although we're going to find a better solution than this, I'm almost sure. And then the battery tray itself is just an unexciting 6AA tray. So let's set that aside and kind of take a look at our actual internals. So we're going to need to keep the entirety of this latch. It's pretty obvious how this works, but when you pull this back, it releases this friction lock here, and then when you come back down, the spring tension puts it back into place, and you get that physical grab. That's awesome. Everything else in here I think is also mission critical. Like we definitely, it's trying to run away on us. We definitely need the pusher and the indexing piece all intact, which is to say that there are not actually a lot of locks in this blaster, so to speak. That means that the focus of our improvements and all of our intentions are going to be here. We're going to remove this flapper bit because I think that it only serves as an obstruction, and we're going to tune up the entire flywheel cage setup. Let's take a better look at that. So outside of 3D printing another cage here, I can't see much that we should or could do with the geometry. Obviously, printing a cage, we could bring these motors closer together, we could get tighter crush. As it is, I'm going to compare the flywheels to flywheels that I have in my workshop, and this is the real kit and caboodle back here. Oh no, 2 more screws. All right, and popping those open. Interestingly enough, these are color coded to the blaster itself, but you can see pretty standard for China, which is to say not amazing soldering, but easily remedied and improved. It's certainly durable, which is nice. And then we've got some little shock absorber pads. Why not save those? And it's kind of wild how this ultra skeletonized cage here almost suspends the motors inside, and if only there was a little more flex, it could be a very interesting sort of variable crush setup. But without getting too into that, luckily, like I was just saying, this is going to pop out very, very easily. We should be able to remove this spring like so, and then the entirety of these bits we're just going to omit. Can't think of any practical uses for them. And then as far as the motor setup goes, we're going to have to pop these off and replace them with these. These are Foam Blast Fang revamped motors, named after the baddest nerfer around. These deliver the best performance around, and we're going to mate them with Containment Crew Cyclone wheels. These are special edition Containment Crew Cyclone wheels from End War 2018. That's why they've got the sweet, sweet Athens logo. Both links will be in the description box below. This new beating heart is possible because the Cyclones are just a little bit higher diameter than the original wheels, which is going to give us a little bit of additional crush without impacting these walls. And then of course, these motors are in fact 130 sized, but you can tell by how quickly my fangs clinked onto there that they are much, much weaker motors in terms of their magnetism and overall performance. So that threshold should be vastly improved as well. Let's go ahead and stitch together a beating heart for you guys and show you what this is going to look like in top form. Let's go. So what we're essentially doing here is dropping a Hemi engine into a Honda Civic. We are making a powerhouse out of something that stock is very, very light. Hopefully it can handle the noise and what we bring to it. I do want to compliment them. At least they have these super cool rubber gaskets inside their cage, which should stabilize it a little bit inside the shell. Now, unfortunately, where we would normally sink 2 screws into here to really anchor this in, we no longer have that option. So we're going to have to use these original bits here to lock these guys down. Unfortunately, that's going to be a little bit tight because of how it's going to interfere and interface with our prongs. So solder first and then go from there. One fun fact about the wild wire strippers is that if you put them in here, you can create your splice without having to worry about splitting. Proper splicing, proper soldering, and proper heat shrink. People like to pretend that the difference between doing really nice work and really mediocre work is like years and years of experience or hundreds of dollars in materials. Frankly, it's far more often that it's just doing the right steps, taking the time to do things properly. And voila! Crazy clean, no additional materials required. So like I said, guys, obviously these posts do not want to fit, but I'm going to share with you the ultra level top secret Thalassa family motto, galvanized through years and years of packing for vampire family vacations and having way too much stuff. It's very simple. It's 3 words. Make it fit. So that concept is very simple. Since ABS is in fact a thermoplastic, the act of heating it with the heat gun at a high heat for a very short period of time should lock these puppies super tight. All right guys, now that the wheels are up, there's only one thing left to do. That's right. All right, so we are going to isolate this switch and I think honestly just do nothing with it. It makes more sense to leave it in than off, so this will be pseudo sleeper-esque. And then all of these little bits have to come out. To accomplish this, I've gone ahead and straightened as many of the prongs as I possibly can, and I'm kind of pushing them through, and then we're going to literally just pull them out with our, well, that didn't work. We're gonna have to get messy with it. Alright, so once all of that is gone, we have a clean battery tray. Admittedly, this work is not like my greatest ever. It is pretty quick and dirty, but hey. Alrighty guys, so after a lot of messing around with switch placement, considered putting it here, but the travel is a full travel. Considered putting it in here, but it would impact where I want the battery tray to go. I've decided to risk it to get the biscuit and maintain that original switch flipping. If you want a full tutorial on how to do a dual stage trigger in a dart zone blaster, definitely check out my quantum video, which will be linked up around there. Check it out there. Anyway, so we're going to use this original switch. It's going to be slightly tricky, but let's go ahead and crack this open. We're going to completely remove this thrower arm because we no longer need the thrower arm, just the switch itself. Well, luckily the stock switches that Dart Zone uses, pretty beefy. So for the rotation mechanism to work, the wires have to sneak in through here and hide. Like so. And 16 gauge is about as heavy as you can get away with here. Luckily for us, 16 gauge is all you really need. Alright, one switch properly rewired. Slap that on there. And this on here. Alrighty guys, what does ABT stand for? Always be testing. And the red wire is connected to the switch and stuff, and the switch and stuff is connected to the battery. And the wires go into the conduit, and then you get some stuff. Yeah. Ooh, these wires are tight. They do not want to be in there, my guys. Alrighty, and with everything back in place, at least for this main body segment, we're gonna snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Alrighty, so again, super cool. Panel goes back on, and let's start locking it back down. Fun trick for wiring XT60 connectors: if you take your male and insert it before you solder, it'll prevent the prongs from getting melty and going any which way. Alright, let's do this. Alright, and that is solid. Second fast, same as the first. While this connector cools down, go ahead and snap this panel back into place. And we're good on the battery front. Whew, still warm. All right, that's perfectly functional. All right, good to go to the studio. Alright guys, so this is our finished build. Let's go ahead and hook this up. This is of course a Graphene 1.0. Normally I favor the 9.5s, but I just got this one at a war. It's lightly used by my friend Steven. And go ahead and plug that in. It's got a pretty good fit in this tray. I think that it would be very easy to fit one slightly smaller, but it would also be easier to fit one that was a little bit larger, although I think that this is about torqued out for this tray. Then we'll go ahead and lock it in. So in an interesting electrical snafu, off is on and on is off. That is not relevant to our performance at all. Let's go ahead, snap this into place, flip it up. Again, this still drops with gravity. That 16 gauge wire is just the right diameter to fit in there, but let's go ahead and turn it off. We're definitely getting slightly better performance out of this system. Again, I wish that our motor spacing was a little bit tighter, but overall super hot. Let's just kind of plow through this. We've got everything from elite darts to waffle tips to AccuFakes to AccuStrike, and then we'll do a quick crony reading and see if our juice was worth the squeeze. That was pretty cool. All right, chronograph data, go! Alrighty guys, so let's get some chronograph data and we can compare it to the pre-modded version. Go! Alright, so in conclusion, our chronograph numbers, we got a lot of errors for some reason. It was very difficult reading with the light box inside tonight, but getting everything from like, we had a 71 and a 74 as outliers, I think just really bad darts that slipped kind of funky, and we were getting everything as high as like 112, 110, so with an average a little like under 110, I'm pretty confident that this is like worth doing. However, there's roughly $30 in materials in this build already, so I highly recommend like somebody with more time than me needs to design a cage that increases the crush to really make this worthwhile. And I think that once you've done that, like this is a very viable effort. I'm sure that OFP will have some sort of offering for it when that comes out. And if not, I think that we can always count on the boys over at Containment Crew to do wacky one-off wild cages. But that is the mod guide for the Double Trouble, bringing you those good mods before the blaster even hits the shelves. Definitely worth modding, definitely like increases the overall performance threshold of it. I think cage geometry is what this one's going to come down to, and honestly the super open cage isn't even my favorite just because the super open cage leads to a little lower accuracy. However, this thing hits hard enough that it will literally blow the heads off most darts, just shooting targets that are 5 feet away, but it is a super sweet blaster, definitely worth modding. I think that it makes for, like I said, just a super funky, fresh machine pistol, and I'm happy that we did it. I'm happy that we cracked it open and showed you the internals. The indexing is pretty interesting. The pusher mechanism is, of course, very standard. The lack of rev switch is disappointing, but like I said, Quantum Guide would show you exactly how to enable that on your personal modification. So, overall, what are your thoughts on the Double Trouble? Let me know in the comment section down below. Editing is getting more and more complicated as we rev up for the end of the year, and hopefully we stick with it. Like, I'm enjoying this kind of editing. But thank you guys very much for watching. Your likes and bells and subscriptions are super duper appreciated. As always, much love, Nerf on, Drac out.